Two. Okay. All right. So we should be live. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we should be live. We should be live. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Welcome. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Uh, have a great day today. Hope your day is starting off really well. This is a discussion between myself and a colleague of mine, Mr. David Kelly. Mr. David Kelly is a scholar. He's an entrepreneur, and he's a professor. And I wanted to bring him on for him and I to have this conversation in reference of our school system, our young Black boys, and just our Black students in general, and just what we can do to better the situation, to help them along in their maturation process, their successful process in far as their well-being, their educational standards, and just really how we can really be a part of the overall growth and how that affects the community at large. So, hey, my brother, thank you for coming on. I appreciate
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. You know,
Definitely.
as we stated earlier, a lot of that trauma that these individuals are going through, it comes from a place that they don't know where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It could be generational, it could be cultural. As we stated in the literature we was talking about earlier, we was talking about a book. Can I bring up the book? Should I bring up the book? The book I'm reading right now is a book that I picked up over the couple of weekends at a bookstore, Grandma Hands. It's basically talking about dealing with trauma in individuals, primarily Black people, because we have trauma relating to racism and all this other stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is that the problem that us as young men or women or people of color, anybody, to be honest with you, is that we have trauma that comes from some place. And that place is sometimes generational. These people are not living. The environments that they experience the trauma is no longer in existence, you know? So it's a combination of things that's going on. And we just live accordingly. For example, this is a good example of trauma would be, you tend to like a particular food item, right?
Right.
It doesn't do anything for you, like fried chicken, right?
Right.
Fried chicken, it doesn't do anything for you, but you like it. Taste it. And you know that it's hurting you at some point in the next 40, 50 years. You're going to succumb to some kind of issues related to fried chicken. Great. At some point, you got to come to an amend. Should you come to amend when you at a hospital saying, listen, your cholesterol level is XYZ and you need to get off of this, whatever animal you're consuming? Or should you do it when it's like, listen, you want a heart, we just pumping you and trying to get your heart started? At some point, you're going to have to come to amends. And that's what trauma is all about. Trauma is something that you can handle early on, or you can deal with it at the time of incident. And the point is that we don't want to deal with anything at the time of incident, because at that point, that's when you start to cause problems for yourself as well as the other individual.
Right.
So looking at these young boys right now, we're growing up in communities that's undesirable, number one. Let's say you all come from urban centers. I say 70-80% of Black boys and girls, we come from urban centers. Urban centers meaning that there's north of 500,000 people living in that city. And you have a Black enclave for the most part, or brown enclave, we're going to say. And there's certain kind of racial strife and social stratification that's going on in that community. Along with that comes racial profiling, poor education system, poor diets, so forth and so on. All of those things breed trauma. But you fail to realize that that child, his parents and his grandparent lived in that very same neighborhood X amount of years ago. You know, so when you want to deal with trauma, you have to really go back to the source as to why. And some of us can't go back. You know, some of us refuse to go back because it's so painful. You know, I don't want to go back to the pain of understanding or the pain of experiencing something that happened to my grandmother or grandfather. I'd rather just live for today, reinvent myself, and keep moving. And that's where it's at. But you fail to realize that whenever you just start to patch stuff up, it just looked like a patch job.
Right. It piles on, right? It never really fixes.
As opposed to just, you know, unwrapping it and allowing it to do what it does, you know? So it is what it is. Any questions?
And that's a great point you mentioned, because I just found out about that book, Grandma's Hands. A good friend of mine is reading it, and he got the suggestion from Charlemagne on The Breakfast Club.
Oh, wow. It was on The Breakfast Club?
It was on The Breakfast Club. The author was on The Breakfast Club maybe about 2 weeks ago.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, you know, I never heard of the book nor the person wrote it. Ransom.
Yeah.
You know, but he was just taking about it in my grandma's hands, and how he even came up with the title of the book, and like you were saying, he was unpacking and actually going into the dynamics of the trauma and how it manifests in the person, in their body, in their mind, and in their environment. Like one thing I remember him mentioning in reference of, like you were saying, the patching of like not going back and dealing with grandma or grandfather's trauma and not even understanding where that came from. So so seeing why they did certain things, you would think it was a family trait, but it's not really a family trait. It's an adopted or adapted behavior for survival that end up becoming a family trait. Because they saw it in their grandmother, their aunts, their uncles, and then it's like, oh, well, this is what the family, this is what we do. It's like, no, it's not what we do. It's just something that grandma had to take on in order to survive, and then we adapt it and we normalize it. I was like, oof. I'm like, wow, that's deep.
And it says that in his book. I don't get any credit for. I think we don't get any credit for bringing up his book. But the point is, it's a good read, and it's something we can learn from it. You know. But you're right. It's powerful. Then when you take deep dive, and actually, you know what? Let's look at it on a pedestrian level. You get looking at a young man who may be sitting in your class, 17, 18. You know how we used to work with these kids who was struggling academically, and they used to come to us. And their life was ragged. You know, they may be gang activity. You know, parents is actually encouraging them to drop out so that they don't get an ACS case or, one of those cases. You familiar with what I'm talking about?
I am familiar with you.
Where the kids was like, how old? They were like 16, 17, right?
Right.
And they have to be in school up until their 17th birthday.
Correct.
And they come to us, and we used to ask them questions like, you only did one semester in high school or one term in high school. And I said, how did you survive? He said, oh, my mother used to, hide me, or we used to hide you. You remember having these conversations?
I do remember having these conversations. I actually do, yes. Yeah.
And we were like, but the system actually was out there looking for you to try to connect you to these institutions, And the ones that really fell between the lines were the ones who came from other countries. You remember that?
I do remember that.
Who came from other countries, and their parents literally was encouraged with trying to make sure that they can go to work at 14, 15 as opposed to going to school.
Right.
Their attitude was, listen, we new to the country. We need to make this money.
Trying
to go to school.
Yeah.
And that's where the travel comes in also,
That's a good point. That really is a good point. Like, but do you think, Mr. Kelly, it comes from like not trusting the system? Because we've been having these talks recently with myself and other peers, especially in reference of the vaccine, but more importantly, in reference of these systems, these institutions per se, that have allowed us to enter, but we're not allowed to like fully quote unquote integrate.
To be honest with you, the system is not designed for us. Let's be blatantly honest. Let's be blatantly honest. The whole educational system, the economic system, the investment system that we're all a part of, is not designed for us. It's designed for us to be able to work within that system and to provide utility within that system. Let's be honest about it. Some of us are successful. We may be able to make a couple of dollars in the process. We may be able to build some level of social wherewithal because of it. But the majority of the system is not designed for us. I was talking to a neighbor a few months ago, and he was saying that certain populations of people just come into the system and they do well. They don't have to deal with poverty. And he was like, I'm thinking that they are much smarter than we are. I think they're much more put together mentally and socially than we are. I said, you're right, but I ain't being a bust his bubble when I have to. I said, listen, the reason why those people do well is because those people created the system. If you create the system, 9 times out of 10, you will be able to manipulate it to your advantage. We did not create the system. We was created. We actually built the system that they created and helped master the system. So in essence, those individuals who come into the system is going to actually do well because they are the master of the system. Just like anything else, if you create something, you can manipulate it to change the rules.
Makes sense.
And that's one of the reasons why we don't do well academically. Let's look at academics. We come from the academic environment.
Right.
When you start to learn math tends to be the hardest subject for our students. I don't know why, but it tends to be. The reason why math tends to be because it's a language. It's not taught as a language. It's not taught as a way in which you express. It's a tool to express physical outcome or whatever outcome, the guessing in the movement. So that's what math is all about. And when we teach it in a stoic way. We teach it in one way, and hopefully you repeat enough. Eventually, you start to think like it, and that's how you're going to solve that problem. When in fact, that has multiple ways of completing that. I had a unique ability, a unique opportunity, to teach math over the summer. I taught math, and I haven't taught math in years, but I taught it over the summer. But what I did is I chose to teach it in a multi-dynamic way. I taught it where I gave the solution to the students up front. Here's the problem. Now you solve it. Now everyone solved the problem, but of the 10 students that was in that class, we had maybe 4 or 5 different ways of solving that same problem. And then I gave them a test with similar problems, but not that one, but with similar problems. Yeah. And they all did well. The idea is how we come about doing things, but we are not forced to do so. We are forced to learn this system. This is how you're going to do it. This is what you're going to do. And if you don't get it, you're going to fail your SATs. You're going to fail this class. You're going to get a C or you're going to get a D. And that's right. And then you don't think that you have math abilities when you do. Right? That you can learn anything you want. It's just the approach. And the system has not been designed to give us that type of approach. It has been designed to give us a stoic or one-way approach to something, and that's it. And then we fail in the system. Then we realize, oh man, I can't go to college. You can go to college, but college is not necessarily a life in all to begin with. College is an experience, And once you get through that process, if you choose to go, then you can reinvent yourself 1,000 times over. But you're right. We suffer because the system in itself is not primarily for us. And a lot of us struggle with that. We struggle with that.
We do.
We're not doing well socially, especially when you get older, like we are. When you get north of your 40s, 50s, and 60s, you start to realize you have a lot of resentment. And that resentment is the fact that I never went to college. I never had a family. I never took care of my kids from different baby mama. Just a lot of resentment that goes in there. And the reality is that it comes from a place. It comes from a place that you're not fitting in, and you're not going back and to understand why you didn't fit in. And then you learn it from that way. I know I'm all over the place, buddy.
No, you're right. You're right.
But when I lecture, it usually goes like that. That's one of the problems with my lecturing, because we have a curriculum that we usually follow, right?
Right, we do, right.
When you get into something, I usually do it like this for my students. I say, listen, this is the information you're going to be responsible for reading. And I can read it to you, or we can read it to each other, and we can learn that way.
Right.
Or I can actually have you read this yourself, and I will give you information that surrounds this. What method do you choose? And they always choose that method, which means I need the surrounding information, because at that point, it will give me a better understanding as to why. And the why is the reason as to what you would do, why you would do well. For example, going back to the math situation, we was doing a project, a problem on logic. We was doing logic. Logic is a part of calculus, right? It tells you at what purpose, at what place, what would happen. You may have more energy at this level than you have at that level, right? Right. So that's basically logic. So I was trying to explain that to the individual. And once you explain as to why you would need more energy at different points, then you will realize the logic behind it. Just like anything, you need more energy in the morning than you would at night because you're dwindling down.
Right.
So you connect those concepts. And when you connect it, you start going, oh, wow, this makes sense. And everything makes sense. Everything in math makes sense. Everything in science makes sense. Everything in social studies makes sense. Everything in all disciplines, but it's the fact that we are not given the opportunity as to the why. And most of us have trauma because we don't ask why. We need to start asking why. And if you ask why, then you're on that road to recovery. That's the begin all to end it all,
Being
why?
Curious.
Yeah.
Being really curious.
Most of us intimidated with the term why. Most of us are. You ask a person, why you didn't graduate high school, you 53. I'm 53 years old and you didn't graduate high school. How am I supposed to fix? How am I answer that question?
Right.
It comes from your grandchild. Let's say it came from your grandchild.
Yeah.
How would you answer that question? A lot of them have that problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That being not only being curious outside of yourself, being curious in inside of yourself. The curiosity of who you are and why you came to be. And I think a lot of our black boys, especially black children in general, African American children, they have that skill, but it's not promoted like in some of their households and their communities. It's more so of outside of yourself, like you said. It's more so do it this way, do it this way. It's very stoic, especially with math. I had issues with math growing up, like up to a certain point. Like I say from maybe first grade to about sixth grade, I was cool. Seventh and eighth, that's when and going into high school, I started having issues. And what I found out is I didn't have enough patience, and the way it was taught was very like stoic. It was very dry. You know, they were good teachers in the sense that they knew what they were talking about, and they was trying to break it down for us. But the way they approached it was so dry that it just turned me off, and I didn't have enough patience to really just endure and say, okay, here are the steps, here's the recipe, right, family? Here's the recipe to get to this particular solution. But I didn't have enough patience because it was so dry. It was like I'm trying to teach me how to bake a cake, but the way you telling me is not working for me.
Because it was supposed to work for you. It's supposed to work for the other dude. The idea is that you teach a person based on their deficits. That's what it comes down to. Whatever your deficit is, that's where we're going to start, number one.
Yeah.
And then just because we have a deficit, we all may have the same deficit, but how you move away from that deficit is going to be the art. It's going to be the art of movement and how you move. Some people be more creative in the sense that they're going to move differently than others. Some people are more logical. I'm a logical thinker. I realize that, you know, as I've been living on this planet for thousands of years, I realize that I'm a very logical person. In order for me to do this, I need to do this. And all of this, that's my type. Some people don't think that way. Some people feel like, you know, let's do it a different way. I don't want to do it that way. And if you have to live up to that concept, it's just like personalities. In math, work on personality. And if you don't master that art as an educator or master of whatever it is you're doing, you can't teach it. You can't manipulate it. It's like anything else. Like I'm going into the franchise business, right? The next couple of months, I'm looking into franchise and buying franchises, right? I'm spending the next year, or at least spent a year researching.
Yes.
It took me a year to get to this point of just research, and how I research it have to do with my level of understanding. It had nothing to do with, oh, my man next door, my dude over here. No, it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with how I learned and comfortable doing so, and then I move progressively. And that's the same with everything in life. And that's what most people struggle with. They feel that if I don't do it the way he's doing it, therefore I'm not successful.
Right.
Be successful regardless, dude. You don't necessarily have to. You don't gotta go to school, you know. And I had a problem with one of the students a couple of weeks ago. He was like saying that his argument was everyone should go to school to some degree, and the other student broke out and said, we all need to go to school, but school happens differently for those who are self-taught. That conversation became a conversation became an internal conversation on our chat system that we have. That went on for like weeks at a time. And he was right. The key is that a person who's willing to ask why is always going to be an intelligent person. He doesn't necessarily have to have school in his repertoire as far as a certificate or a degrey. He just wondered as to why. For example, physics is one of the most difficult subjects in the world. And the problem with physics is that people don't understand motion. If you don't understand motion, then you don't understand physics. Physics deals with the movement of whatever it is, heat, whatever it is, liquid, gas, it doesn't matter. Right? Now, the question was, can you be in two places at one time? And that question, I put it out there. It was one of my questions. Can you be in two places at one time? And when you're dealing with quantum physics, you could be in two places at one time. That's the short answer to why. That's the short answer to the why. How? And that went on like that. So technically, you can be in two places at one time. And physics allows that to happen. But if you don't understand why, then you would never think, oh, I got to be at work this time, and I got to be at school this time, I got to be at this part this time. It don't work that way. You can be in multiple places at one time, and we use it with technology. Like I may be in Tennessee, but yet you may be here in New York City.
Right.
You're in two places at one time. In order for that to happen, it's using energy, electrical magnetic energy. And
It is.
electromagnetic energy allows that to occur. It allows you to be in two places at one time. And it also, if you ever take quantum physics, you understand how it works. It's basically the movement of photons and electrons in this movement. And they moving so quickly that is actually, you haven't seen something move like this and it look like it's both places.
Right.
Concept.
That is.
Yeah. And then once you understand as to why, then you can start manipulating your system. You know, you get no credit for being done. You get no credit for sitting on the sidelines. You get no credit for not taking chances. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get all the credit for failing. You get all the credit for taking a chance, even if you don't make it.
Right.
But you get no credit for if you just sit on the sideline and just don't ask the question as to why. And why means participation, you know, and then you try it out, you know.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I had a major in STEM when I was in college. That was my background was in science, but I never understood the importance of science other than to get a job working in research or working in a hospital or something like that. Because that's what most people do. They go to college. I'm going to major in chemistry, physics, biology. And what you going to do? Oh, I'm going to work in a hospital. What? What? You're going to become a doctor or a nurse. For what? You're going to spend all this time learning these basic concepts just to work in the hospital, push a needle, and talk about disease and treatment.
But aren't those honorable positions? You know, coming from
honorable positions, but at the same time, you're never going to get wealthy, man. I mean, yeah, you can make a lot of money, but you're never going to get wealthy working, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. That don't work. The person who got you working there for 40, 50 is going to make all the money. Like the hospital administrators, they don't have a science to back. I mean, they don't have a degree in medicine, but the hospital administrators make all of the money.
Wow.
Yeah, they can make up to $500,000, and the doctors may be making what, $200,000. $150,000. That's a good money to people who don't have a lot of money.
Yeah,
making $250,000. But look at the other guy who's sitting next to you, the administrator. He's making much more, or the regional rep.
But would you say, Mr. Kelly, just to interject, would you say that even if you're doing that profession, you're not making maybe a lot of money, but morally and I guess spiritually, I guess if some people would attest to that it is fulfilling,
But benevolence is at every corner. You can find a benevolent individual at every corner. Here's a statue of a benevolent individual who decided to serve humanity. And as soon as you walk by, are you thinking about that benevolent individual? No. There's always going to be benevolence in society. But the key is that you carry yourself with you. So whatever resentment or trauma you may have with you, you got to carry that with you until you make yourself benevolent to yourself. At some point, you're going to have to take ownership and make yourself happy. And until you do that, you have to ask the question as to why. And once you ask why, then the tools comes into play. The tools comes into play, which looks like, all right, the first step. We call it the stages of change. People call the stages of change. It's called a process that you go through. The first step is to acknowledge that I have a problem. I acknowledge that I have a problem. Now, the next step will be, what am I going to do? Do something. The next step will be do something. All right, fine. I'm going to talk to a therapist. But is the therapist what you really need? Or you need a really good conversation from a clear-headed individual? Okay? Something like that? Do you have that wherewithal in your repertoire of individuals that you deal with every day? Do you have human capital? We talk about human capital.
I mean, we also talking about that a lot, human capital. Yes,
we do. We have human capital in our community, or even in your cell phone, or either people you can communicate with, or those are quality individuals that you can talk to and get real information, not like information or cool or hangout information. I mean, real, unadulterated, as we call it, Paideia. As what is it? Cornel West talks about Paideia.
I remember him mentioning something like that. Yeah.
If you have that real Paideia, as Cornell talks about, then you're really talking about something. But if you don't have that, then what are you saying? You're just living a happiness of saying, all right, fine, I got $300,000 working as this research surgeon or whatever have you. You're good with that. You can put a couple of dollars away, you can put your kids through school, and you're good. You can also be a benefactor. You can donate a couple of dollars to someone else. You're great. That's a great life. And I frown never upon an individual who does that. And I think all of us should be able to rise to those levels. But if you're uncomfortable with that, And if you realize that the guy who's running the show is usually 2 steps ahead of you, then you realize that, oh my gosh, I'm spending 17, 18 hours a day in the hospital and I'm not really doing anything other than making money for dude over here as opposed to making money for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. And that's when the why comes into play. You know?
Right. Wow.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. But, some of us, once we caught up with a mortgage, some kids and a wife, you ain't walking away no time soon. I got to pay my mortgage.
Right, yeah.
I got to pay my mortgage. I got this. I'm not acting like a fool.
Right. But let me ask you this though. It's like you said, we did the Paideia concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we begin to? Because a lot of us as young men and even teenagers,
mm-hmm.
they may not know how to surround themselves with the positive individual because the person that may be their good friend or at least someone in the neighborhood that they're used to hanging out with, they may be involved in certain activities that aren't conducive to like really progressing. And let's call it what it is. They may be, doing shenanigans. They may be acting unruly outside, all over the place emotionally, and we know where that can come from. But like, so how do you? I guess you begin to pinpoint, because Jay-Z is good at this. Jay-Z got good at this, I think. That whole concept. He had his guys that grew with the Marcy projects, and then he got with Dame, and then his career started to progress because they collabed up together, him, Dame, and Biggs. But then after a while, he started to kind of differentiate what friends were going to take him to kind of like, I guess that next level.
Yeah.
And he stuck with that crew. Like how did we begin to decipher who's going to kind of move through life to get us to that next level or progress? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. The first one, you got to be in the room with the people who can actually move things for you.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you got to be in their company. If you don't have that company, then you're never going to make that connection. Mm-hmm. Say most of us, we're deep in the hood and we can't get out the hood because we don't have any wherewithal to get out. So we're not going to do it. So the first step would be get a job. You get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs in schools are the 2 places you're going to meet people who have wherewithal. Like I use the concept of a janitor, a middle income, and a wealthy person working in, let's say, like the Empire State Building, right? The janitor has been working there for 25, 30 years, mopping and cleaning up, right?
Right.
The accountant who may be making anywhere from $70,000 to $80,000 a year been working there for the same amount of time. And the guy who's making $160 million a year is working there too. He's been working there for the same amount of time, right? You think they're going to get to know each other? Yeah. They're going to see each other often. They may even have a little conversations. They may not work in the same office, but they know each other and they see each other. And they have some conversation. Mm-hmm. And in that opportunities are where you are able to branch. You have to be in close proximity to individuals who can bring you that kind of information. Once you're in close proximity with that individual, then you can ask the question of why. And then they can turn you on to opportunities. That's what we call human capital. Mm-hmm. Human capital is basically being in contact or having people in your repertoire that you can actually connect to and literally move you from one area to the other. And not necessarily giving you a hookup, but giving you insight.
Right.
Insight is the key to whatever it is. Let's say, for a good example, let's say the janitor. He's like, he want to listen. The guy and making 160, he's trading stocks upstairs, Bitcoins and all this other stuff he's doing upstairs. Right. And the janitor got a little bonus check of, let's say, $2,000. He said, listen, what you can do? I said, listen, let's put it in Bitcoin and see what happened. He wouldn't have known that. He would have took that $2,000 and bought some Uptown, some Nikes, went on a vacation, or whatever. But he told him to take the little $2,000 and put it in Bitcoins. He come back 6 months later, his Bitcoins are now $10,000. He realized, oh wow, I didn't know it was like that.
Right.
It's just human capital. But the key is what and why. Asking those 2 questions, it'll take you far. And that in Jay-Z instances, what he did is he's not a bright individual. He knows he's an artist. He's a confessed artist. But you have the good things about artists is they're better at recognizing things than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
Ability of being
that awareness.
Yeah, off the chain.
Awareness.
You can see that he has it based on how he move and what he say in his music.
Right, that curiosity.
Yeah. And he's not open with it. He's not an overt person. He's very covert in his action.
Yeah.
So and how he moves about it is basically I'm an artist. I have a reason. I have an audience. I have over billions of followers. So how can I use my followers to move me to the next level? Same thing with any of the artists. The artists have millions of followers. So they use their followers to move them along. And once they move along, then they connected with key individuals who are just as hungry as they are, but they have key information. And you build and build. And sometimes you have to get rid of an old group to get a new group. That's hard to understand, that you have to get rid of the group you came in with to accept a new group that's going to help you move to the next level. And then you ask the questions, now that I'm moving, what am I moving for? What am I moving to? You know what I'm saying? Am I moving towards something, or I'm just being more of the same? Because you have to remember, now you're in a room with the Warren Buffetts of the world, the Bill Gates, the Mark Zuckerbergs. You are the billionaire room, right?
Right.
Are you changing anything? Or are you just more of the same? And they technically are more the same. You're a billionaire like Oprah Winfrey, but she's more the same. She could be anybody.
Right.
She's another Rupert Murdoch, if you ask me.
Yeah. So you see the sister. Okay, this sister Gloria Miller. Hello, Gloria. If you're still on, she put public schools are an abomination. Public schools should be abandoned. They become prisons. The teachers are overpaid and the students are underserved. Schools are Marxist indoctrination camps.
It could be. It could be. But the idea is that you have to remember, that's our first way out of the hood is the schools.
Yeah.
And the most intelligent person in the school is supposed to be the master teachers, which are the principals or the teachers themselves. They are the master teachers, right? So they are the ones who are supposed to be able to get you out of those prison environments. But more likely, those master teachers are not necessarily designed to move you from one level to another because they in themselves may be dealing with trauma. They put the worst teachers in the worst communities because they don't have to do as much work.
Let's talk about that.
It gets so bad that they want you to write the curriculum for them and do the lesson plans for them and also do the electronic grading. So all they got to do is sit there and read from the page, answer question 1 through 5, and then go online and put your answers in, and then that's it. You do your 45, 50 minutes in the class, and hey, thank you, here's my check. That's not teaching.
Right.
Teaching is this. Like what I try to tell my students. You can read this on your own time, but my job is to give you everything that's around this that have nothing to do with what we're talking about on this page, but everything to do with it. Right?
Give it context.
That's how I teach. I teach, like, if we're going to be talking about physics, I'm going to talk about physics, but I'm pretty sure you're going to read the theories and the dynamics. Right. You're also going to give you some examples and everything else, but I'm also going to tell you how physics works in real life, how it's manipulated, how it's used in real life, that this write-up does not include. So by the time you leave me, you have a real understanding of how it works in the real world, and not just a stoic perspective. And the same thing goes in business as well. Oprah Winfrey have a stoic understanding of business. It's about buyers, consumers, and moving a product. She's in the television industry. How many viewerships, how many eyeballs I have on my system, how many clicks I'm getting online. So she's making money on viewerships and product movement.
Right.
Jay-Z doing the same thing with music and whatever he's trying to do in alcohol and clothing. It's just how many people buy my product. Is that something new? Or it's the same thing all over again. But you're not changing anyone's lives, And the worst thing you can do is give me money. So let's say Oprah Winfrey give me a couple of dollars, right?
Right.
Winfrey's a billionaire. Oh, you know what, Oprah? I need $50 million so I can do boom, boom, boom. So she give me the money. What do you think I'm going to do with it? Open up the business. What I got to do? Generate money, become successful, but I'm just like her now. Did I really make a change? I didn't really make a change. I'm the same. I'm just adding to that pot of people who are million and billionaires, but I'm not making change. I'm not making the world a better place.
Right. Right. I mean,
Young lady had a statement again. What she have to say? She had something to say?
Yeah, it was another statement. She had like a couple, but this one is about Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger in reference of Planned Parenthood and things like that. So we should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers. Or quote, we should hire 3 or 4 colored ministers. We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro problem. That's by Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, but you have to remember that the abortion industry came about as a result of something else. A lot of these women was getting pregnant because their dudes was in the hospital. I mean, in the war. So let's say you go to World War I and II, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a baby, right? You have a baby, and you don't let the dude know who's in the war that you pregnant by some other guy. So what he's you're going to try to abort the child so you can keep your marriage together. Agree? Because marriage is more important than the casual relationship that you want to get pregnant, right? Therefore, that was the problem with abortion started really coming into play during World War I and World War II. During the Vietnam War, a lot of these women was getting pregnant and they didn't want to carry, and so they was doing their own thing about getting their own abortions with the coat. You heard about the coat hanger?
Coat hanger, yeah.
So they was doing, and a lot of them was dying, getting sick, and killing themselves. So what they did is they legalized the process, but the process was already in effect. And as a result of it, we have legalized abortions. There's nothing wrong with choice. I think women should be able to make a choice because that's just me. I have no right over a young lady telling her what she should or should not do with regards to. If she want to abort the child, if she want to send the child up for the adoption, it's all on her. Human beings have a right to do whatever we want to do. You know what I'm saying? But on the flip side of that is this. We shouldn't come in there with an exterminating idea. Oh, we're exterminating, killing the black community. Black people, like anybody else, have unprotected sex with people that they do not intend to have kids with. You know that. We have sex with people we don't intend to have, and we don't use protection, and we get pregnant. It's like any Asian, black, white, Hispanic, we all do it, and we all get pregnant. So it's not necessarily extermination of people in general. It's just a choice that you're doing.
Ms. Kelly, what do you feel about and again, I'm glad we're having this talk. And definitely for y'all tuning in, if y'all have any questions, definitely let us know. Put some comments down below. It seems like we're talking about black youth, male and female, but definitely we're talking about especially men, young boys. It seems like that we talked about this before, like when you just mentioned being in proximity of someone like the human capital, like you said, with the janitor and the executive. With the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and whatnot. And it seems like those proximities are limited to us because, again, we don't know how to go in those environments. But also, the hookup is the information. The hookup is the constant talk and the rapport with each other, right? That is the hookup. But because I think we are in such a deep financial strain, low economic situation, that we go for the immediate. Because I tell people a lot. Sometimes I feel, or I truly believe that sometimes you have to go for the immediate in reference of money or a stable job in order to get to the luxurious or the options of making more. Because I think, and I'm paraphrasing this quote that with James Baldwin. James Baldwin said that bread alone will not suffice to a person, but they must acquire the bread first in order to come to that realization.
Yeah, it's true. That makes sense. You have to learn how to crawl before you walk.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to walk before you run. And you have to learn how to run before you can actually sprint, So you're right. There's an opportunity there. But the key is that there's always charlatans in the system. There's charlatans in the system. There's charlatans in the church. And there's charlatans in the schools willing to take advantage of you looking for an opportunity and improve yourself. A good example would be this. You go on the internet, you want to learn about Bitcoins or real estate, and you go take this course. You just pay $19.99 for this course, and you'll learn how to do X, Y, and Z. Those may be charlatans on the other side. At the end of the day, you're doing the work that you could have done with someone else. The realtor down the street could have done that for you.
Right.
But the real answer to your question is this. Sometimes that human capital have to be built within you. You have to be that source of human capital. You have to be that person who actually going to research on their own and become a self-invested interest. Sometimes you cannot look outside you because you may be so deep inside your circumstances that there's no one of value to you other than those who are looking to make $1 off of you. You follow? Find those in developing countries. If people who coming from developing countries, they struggle with that all the time because every time they look to improve themselves, there's someone who's willing to take advantage of them. We have that here. It looks a little bit more legally protected, like business law or business practices. So that protects us from being taken advantage of. But yet we are taking advantage of on a different level.
Right.
The key here is that you may have to be that institute of change. And how do you become that institute of change? You research and you develop on your own. You learn that stuff on your own. Once you learn it on your own, you become that human capital for those who come behind you. A good example is Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington had no one to help him. I was just reading, you know,
the From Slavery book.
Vacation. Excuse me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, family, the Booker T. Washington Up From Slavery book about his story, his autobiography, and that's one of them. I mean, if you're not inspired from reading that book, I don't know what to tell.
But I was reading a lot of his other writings and his affiliations with these white and black organizations.
Yes.
But remember, the white organizations was really helping him to move away from him. You know what I'm saying? The black organizations was not trying to help him because he was trying to separate them from them. You get what I'm trying to say?
Okay.
So he was actually in a quandary. But he have to remember, he became his own self-invested interest, which means, you know what, I'm gonna do this on my own. Because there is nothing, let me create one.
Yes.
So he created the whole system by himself. He used other people, but he knew that those other people did not have his best interests at heart. But I'm gonna work with you anyway. And I don't know where he get that enlightenment from, because the average person, we feel that if someone is helping me, they love and like me, they support me. That's how we feel. But that's not always the case. In his instance, you don't care nothing about me, you know? And the idea is that if you're willing to help me, I'm going to do this. And in return, you can come and benefit from whatever it is I'm doing. He's building a black school for black people. That's great to a white supremacist, because you would never come to the University of Alabama or the University of Mississippi. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You stay right there, great. And that whole concept continued all throughout the 1800s after we got out of slavery. About the 1800s, all these black schools and these land grant schools started coming about. Because we reinforced the idea of separatism in itself. And it worked itself out, but at the same time, you have to become that benevolent body yourself. And very few of those land grant colleges were private. Most of them to this day are still public institutions.
Right. I went to one Fisk University, which was private.
Yeah, but very few of them were private. You know, most of them was based on some church type of situation, Presbyterian or Baptist church.
Yeah, Methodist, Baptist, Methodist,
Yeah, so even though they was private, they was considered nonprofit. They was not making a lot of money from those schools, their students. So the idea is that, we have to become that individual to be that individual. And a lot of us are not interested in doing the work, because once they give you that check, I just graduated from, like my daughter's going through this right now. She just graduated from college. And she have a choice of going into politics, going into law school, and working a job. You got to do all of it. So you have to do every last one of those things. Don't ever choose one versus the other. Choose them all, because you have the ability to do them all. And that's what she did. She chose to do every last one of those things. Going to law school, you helping your friend become a politician, and you also going out and pursuing the income that you need to maintain your lifestyle. And she's just doing it. It's stressing her out.
Yeah.
If you have someone to tell her that you can do it, it would have been a different story. Don't you ever tell me what I can and cannot do. You can do anything you want to do. But make sure whenever you do it, you provide security for yourself and not for the other people. Look out for yourself first, because you can't save me if I'm drowning if you can't swim. So what you coming out here for? I'm drowning and you can't swim. So we gonna drown together? Yourself first. Learn how to swim. So when you come and get me, you come and get me in the right way. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm trying to teach my daughter to do. Actually, she's already doing it. Some kids can go with it and get it. Other kids, they have to, be pushed along, Or you realize that all kids are technically not the same, as is all human beings are not the same.
Not the same.
So you deal with them differently. Some people you're going to have to just set up something for them, have them do it, follow suit, and they may be just successful just working. And some people, I know when I got out of college years ago, and I sat at my desk and I realized I got to work 35 hours a week, and I get a check. I think my check was $800 every 2 weeks. My check was $800 every 2 weeks, and I had a car note. I had to pay my parents' rent to live there.
Okay.
And I had a student loan. And I was making $800 every every It's 14 days, right?
Right.
Yo, this ain't gonna work. It took me one day of sitting there and realizing that, yo, I gotta start to move on. This ain't gonna work. Because I did the math, math is
Yeah.
the first thing you do.
Right.
Math to see what you have afterwards. And if you broke it and it is when you started, then you need to look at another hustle. And that's exactly what happened to me. As soon as I said that I was miseducated.
Mm-hmm.
Went to college, you was miseducated, because no one told you how the hustle works.
Right.
Hustle works when you're doing multiple things at one time. And no one ever told you that. The worst thing you could do is get a job. Because that job right there is going to predicate everything you're going to be able to do. So you have multiple opportunities.
Right. Well, like I said, just one job. Right. Just let me interject here too, because this is a talk I had with a good friend of mine as well. Like the paradigm, right? Like humans, we can do anything, right? Quote unquote. There's a time limit, there's an energy limit, there may be a physical limit per se, or mental limit, right? But do you think that the paradigm, right, when we talk about white men, your European men, Caucasian men, the paradigm of certain things, like you said, because the system was created by them, we helped to build that system, but it was created by them, the nuances. Do you think that the paradigm that they said, like when they say like a Renaissance man, right? Like the whole term of Renaissance man, like he or she can do a lot of different things at one time. But then when I look at it and relate it to sports, like with the whole Tom Brady thing, right? Tom Brady's successful, i.e., with championships and the New England Patriots and just over time. But it seems like because he's successful, the whole black quarterback issue, that black, quarterbacks are thinkers, they're planners, they're the leader of the team.
Mm-hmm.
This whole concept of stay in the pocket. Brady, he stays in the pocket. I was talking with a friend of mine and my brother as well about how that paradigm, since Randall Cunningham, Warren Moon, Joe Gilliam coming out of Tennessee State in Nashville,
Lamar Jackson and
Lamar Jackson, RG3, they don't stay in the pocket. So it's like, why don't they stay in the pocket? And it's kind of like they don't really recognize them or want to acknowledge them for the skill that they have, because it doesn't fit that paradigm of that old school, let's call it white old school quarterback that stays in the pocket. It's like, we don't have to stay in the pocket. We can scramble and
because,
you know what I mean? You know what I'm going?
Because you are my investment. If you are my investment, I must get a return on my income, right?
Mm-hmm.
I must get a return on my investment. So if I don't get a return on my investment, you keep running out of this pocket and getting hurt, I'm going to lose on my investment, because I still got to pay you the money, right?
Right.
I can't pay you the money on disability and workers' comp and all this other stuff. I need to get my return right here, because the more you working, you may be a really good worker. You bring better customers because you have customer appeal. You're in the front office and you're bringing that attention to me. So that's the concept. It's to basically you get good people who can actually provide excellent service, and they keep that money going. That's what all business is all about. So if I'm miseducating you, but I'm also giving you a salary so you don't start thinking crazy. So if I give you a salary, let's say I'm giving you $60, $70, $80 an hour, right? $60, $70, $80 an hour. And you work and serving that will prevent you from looking for another job. If you're making $15, $20 an hour, like the average college educated individual makes only what? $20, $25 an hour?
Yeah, on average, I think, yeah.
20, 25, maybe even 25 or 30 if they have a supervisory position. They make like six figures. If you do the math on it, it's going to be like $20-something an hour. If I give you a job that's going to pay you $60, $70, $80 an hour, even have you work part-time or whatever, the attitude, you're still going to make more than the average person working full-time. You understand? But if you don't do the math, you won't be able to understand the freedom. But at the same time, you work in that job, but you have to remember, I'm a part of a system that people are taking advantage of. So my show on the road, I can actually make more money moving forward as opposed to staying there. So the key is taking your show on the road and then mastering it. So if you're good at people person, why don't you just become a landlord? A landlord is a people's person. I have tenants.
Right.
I love talking to them. They love talking to me. And you get them to believe things that normally they wouldn't believe. But it's the case. You give them the best thing that they can possibly get, and they continue to pay you. that can continue to provide a service to you.
Right.
And that's what you want to do. If you're good at that, why don't you make money for yourself and start making money for dude? Oh, he's paying me top dollar. I'm getting $40 an hour. And I'm yeah, bro, dude. You know, he's not even there and he's making money for you every day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can be that person, but sometimes most of us are comfortable making the 40. We shouldn't be shaming them. Some $40 an hour is good. We need you to pay your mortgage. We need you to take care of your kids and your wife.
Right.
So stay there. Be happy, retire, get your pension, get your Social Security, and go out the way you want to go out. And we don't frown upon that. I think we should honor you for that because we need you. Because everybody don't have the wherewithal to be able to do multiple things at one time.
Right.
Those individuals, work that job for 20, 30 years, get that pension, buy that home, pay off the mortgage so you can leave that to your children. It's not a lot, but it's something that you can leave.
It's something.
You know what I'm saying?
It's something.
You know, it's something better than nothing. And we don't frown upon that.
No.
We don't demean the individuals who's doing it. But we also must tell them that there's alternatives. And that's where the human capital comes into play.
Right.
Also let them know that even though you're doing this and you may get frustrated, there's alternatives to it. Because you remember, once you continue to do something long enough, you eventually becomes habit forming. And once it becomes habit forming, you can't break it. So if you've been working on that job more than 3 to 4 years, you're not going to break your habit. And most people, it's like being in jail.
Yeah.
Person becomes a hardened criminal after 36 months of being in jail, right?
I didn't know the number. I didn't know those stats like that, but it makes sense.
If you give a person 36 months in jail and they get additional time on top, they're going to be a hardened criminal once. And the younger they are, oh man, that guy is not good to society anymore.
Yeah, they become institutionalized. Yeah, well, typically, they become institutionalized.
So the same thing with the person working on the job. If you're working on a city job, the union and the pensions, try quitting that job and see what happened after 36 months or being on that job for 7 to 8 years. Or you thinking about his retirement because you don't see anything other than that. And everything you do is predicated on, I got to keep my job. I got to keep my job.
Right.
As opposed to saying, the job wasn't doing a lot for you anyway, other than allowing you to be buried properly. A nice little cemetery, a little flowers, little coffin, little headstone. And you good. Maybe your house is paid off. That's great. And that's what we want you to do. But don't don't get a person who's able to do more to settle for less. And the people who can do more, most of us can do more, but we beat them down so bad that they wind up falling in line. We beat them down. And see, I think that you can be better than you work here and you do that. You know, you see that with mom and pop stores too. You know,
you do.
You know, mom and pop stores don't make a lot of money. Like I have a friend who owns like some pizza shops and stuff that his family have had. I asked him how much he's making. He makes salary that he can get a job for. I'm like, what? You working here for 10, 50, you got to close, open up on a Saturday, all the other, and you only making the same amount of money. You can actually go to school and make more. Mom and pop stores is not what you really want to be doing if you're not making a lot of money.
Right.
Business, you're right. But yet you're doing it, but you're not making anything.
Right. But does he love it? I guess my next question would be, do you at least love what you're doing or really appreciate? You know what I mean? Like that's
pizza, dude. How can you love that?
I mean, people hate people. You know, people had a whole thing.
You making the same pizza for the last 50 years, dude. Come on.
You'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised. And let me add on to this too, right? Two things, right? One, I love what you said about again the person who's working a job, paying their mortgage. We need those people. I exist because of those people. We exist because of those people because they had to do what they had to do. Because each generation should be. I come from belief from my family. Each generation should take it further. So one generation may have had to eat what they say, eat crow, as they say, eat crow for the next gen to be able to progress and get the multi-million-dollar business, whatever. If that's your goal, right? So right, like I said, we don't look down on those individuals because the whole thing right now, Kelly, is everybody wants to be a boss. I'm a boss. I'm a boss. I'm a boss chick and I'm a boss girl. I'm a boss guy. And it's like, that's fine if that's what you want. But there are some people that's not their aspiration. They're just not, you know, it's like, or they're the boss of themselves, you know, which goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation is some people call themselves a boss, but they're a boss of things outside of themselves, not their internal self, but their inner self. And then on top of that, right, I want to add on as far as breaking past what that we can do more. You know, the schooling, the training, trades. Like I want you to maybe talk about that, because with schooling, you know, trades were looked down upon when I was coming up. You know, because it was like you're dirty, you're getting your hands dirty. Yeah, you own a building, but you got to do this, or yeah, you work construction, but you got to do this. And now, trades have never went out of style. But the way that they were presented to us, we wanted the not blue collar, we want the white collar job.
Yeah. You want an attaché case and tie.
Right.
You want to go on the airport and go to your new job on a plane somewhere, right? That's cool, right? But you're right. Trade has always been a good thing for us. Ideally, that's what Booker T was all about.
Yes.
The institution was basically a trade school, teach you how to bricklay and all this other stuff. He was actually one of the first institutions for trade for the Black community. And most of the normal schools, what they referred to them back then, were basically trade schools. You know, teaching you sewing, teaching you how to behave and sit down at a table. If you look at some of the curriculums they had back in the 1870s, I think it was.
Yeah.
1870s, look at some of these curriculums, you'd be like, wow, this kid is going to school to learn how to wash his hands, learn how to wash clothes, and learn how to make a meal of balance, you know? Yeah. And then it wasn't until like the 1880s where you start to see them really incorporating things like rigor, like calculus and high levels of physics and chemistry. But the key is this, that trade school itself is the skills, as Dr. Umar say, is the skills that pays the bills. Right. The idea is that you're going to need a plumber. I'm invested in real estate, and I need plumbers all the time. I need electricians all the time. I need contractors all the time, you know. But the idea is that those skills are not profitable unless you businessize yourself. You know? So it's like anything else. You go inside of a job and they pay you $90,000 to $100,000 a year. If you are blind to it, you will take that 90 to 1,000 and think, 90 to 100,000. And look at it as being a good salary. It's just something that's cool. You know, working. They may be on call 24 hours, 7 days a week, but they're doing what they're doing. But on the flip side of that, if you businessize yourself, dude, you're going to make much more than that if you have the same clientele. If you get contracts with governments or institutions, you're basically taking that same skills that you learn and you businessize yourself. So instead of you working and getting paid $100K, you're now want to get paid maybe I'd say $5,000 or $6,000 a day, but you're taking a portion from your workers. So the guy went out and did a job for you that netted him, let's say, $5,000, right?
Right.
Up to $5,000, you may only get $500, 10% of his job. So they give you $500 on his little whatever job he's done. That's great. You only got $5, but guess what? You got $5 from him, $5 from him, $5 from him. And you're making money just sitting here managing flow. There's different ways of doing it. Sometimes you may not want to manage flow. You may just want to say, you know what? I'd rather keep the 4,500 and forget him.
Yeah.
He just keep giving me jobs and I do the 45 or something like that. Sometimes it's good with you, but you have to see angles, and a lot of us are not told the angles or the opportunities that may have. We don't get that until we get older. Like, Cal's like 60-something years old. He can't be lifting these pipes up and down the steps. He can't be carrying these BX wires all over the place. So let's make him the site supervisor. You become site supervisor because of default. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You become a site supervisor because you have the skill set, you know?
Right.
So the idea is that you now graduated, but you think you're doing something when you're really not doing anything. The businessizing of yourself will do so. And that's where what we call generational wealth comes into play. My wife talks about that often. She talks about generational wealth because her attitude is that what legacy will we leave behind?
Right.
She's big on whatever we do, we got to make sure that we incorporate the kids in the system.
Yeah.
You know? And as we grow, put them in the system, and teach them how to run the system. So that they have legacy attached to it. And if they don't act right, we put it in a trust. And if they don't exist, the trust exists, and that's how you make it like that. You know. So the key is that's what those are the options that we need to be taught. So it's nothing wrong with going into a trade. A trade is a beautiful thing, and they're always going to need plumbers and electricians. You know.
Right.
But what they don't tell you is that you can businessize yourself. And you can businessize yourself based on your personality. And some of us don't have that. I have a good friend of mine, this guy's from India. I felt like I know him forever. You know what I'm saying? And he went. I met him back in maybe like 92 or 93, 94.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I was getting out of graduate school when he was getting out of CPA school.
Wow.
He became he's still a CPA, right?
As accountant, right? CPA, a certified
Yeah,
public
certified
accountant.
public accountant. Yeah, so he got a certified public accountant. Yeah, he's an attorney as well. So he was an
Okay.
attorney in India. He also was an attorney in the United States.
Mm.
He had a CPA, and what he was doing, I met him when he was doing audits. He came to our job. I was working in the health field, something like that. I think I was working with a reproductive health research project, right?
Okay.
Doing an audit. He was auditing. You know how auditors come in.
Right.
Auditors come in, they just take over the place. And he
Paperwork.
was doing, we had a little small conversation, and that conversation itself bridged on. But he said one thing that stick with me for the rest of my life since I've been talking to this dude. He said, I can't get the customer base like you can get the customer base because of who I am and my accent. I'm an immigrant coming to this country. I talk with a heavy accent, which would only allow me to service the population of my people. I can't service European, Caribbean, African American, and whites and all these other people. I can only service the Indian population. And I sat there for a little and I asked him why. He said, people in this business that I am, they need trust. I'm your accountant. I'm like an attorney. I have to report to the federal government if you did something wrong. So I have to trust. You have to trust me, number one. You have to also protect me, even if. And you have to know personal things about me. Like for example, if you got let's say you got a criminal case against someone, or someone got a criminal case against you, and that could be potential liability on your business. Your accountant must know that. They must know that potentially you're going to be sued at some point. So you must be able to foreshadow what may happen. And if you can't tell no one of a different cultural race what to do. That's why when you get people like accountants or attorneys, these people usually of like mind. They people you can trust, and that you're going to give information to that that's going to lead you into the right direction. This is how America works. We pay for this. We pay for processing.
Yes.
And to this day, he could not businessize himself. He's still working for a large corporation, and he's doing oil. He make a decent salary. Don't get me wrong. He makes even more when he does taxes, because he has a group of people who does taxes for him, which requires no communication, just being loyal to him. So he does taxes and he does audits. And that's what he spent his whole life doing for the last 30 some odd years. He's been doing that, And that's what life is all about for him. But the idea is that when you enter into these businesses, be it a plumber or something, if you got the gift, the gab, and human capital, your ability to communicate with people, you can be your own boss. Most people don't tell you that. If you can communicate with a stranger, make them feel good, make them understand your job, how it's supposed to be done. It's a salesmanship. How can you sell me on something? And the problem with the Black community, and it kills me every time. Black people are much better in front of the camera than in the back of the camera. Much better at selling a service. We can sell services. We can sell an attitude. We can sell a belief. And it kills me to see us in the background when we should have been in front. Because ideally, you can take a brother right now. I say, I'm gonna give you some Michael Jordan sneakers. I'm gonna set you in this corner right here. I'm gonna give you all the boxes of sneakers you want. Put some music behind that box, right, in a table, and you get your little one of those, square cards. You can swipe people to buy your stuff right there.
That's great.
And let me give you everybody else to do the same thing. That boy will be sold out quickly. He will sell out much. That young guy will sell out much quickly because of who he is and how he come about.
Yes.
Whatever cultural, ethnic, whatever he may be having, but Black people have that appeal. We set trends. We set attitudes, we set beliefs. So once we understand that, we can sell. We have the ability to do it. And you don't necessarily have to, you can even speak an African dialect or Caribbean dialect. It doesn't matter. You're going to sell. You're going to sell the rest of them people, but no one tells us this. They take, well, you know what? I like what you're doing. Let me put you right here so I can actually put this dude here. And what he does is he sells to the masses, but in essence, the masses mean consistency. So you buy from Bill Gates because Bill Gates has a system. He have consistency. Europeans buy for Europeans, and we know that.
Mm-hmm.
And Europeans buy so much for us, we wind up buying for the Europeans as well because we trust that their agents buy for them as well because the system that they put together that does not require too much change. You understand? So how he sell you Microsoft and back in 1980 when it came out, that same Windows package, he's selling you the same Microsoft package, Windows 8, 10, with whatever was it, Windows 11, what they up to
Yeah,
now?
Windows 11, I think now. Yeah, I think it is Windows 11. Mm-hmm.
It's the same software, redacted, you know what I'm saying? But the idea is the same thing. And he's doing it consistently. There's no art to it. There's no changes to it. It's the same boring thing from the 1980s. This young guy right here, maybe a young boy, he may be a teenager, something like that, you know what I'm saying? This young guy is going to change it up. He's going to change up the colors. He's going to change up the flavors. He's going to make you think that it's a different thing when it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? And actually, it may be a little different, you know, because Michael Jordan selling what, the same 11 pair of sneakers he had?
Right, but it's not the same quality of leather.
But it's the same thing.
Mike, I love Mike, but hey, it's not the same quality of leather as it was in the 84, 85.
But then again, think about it. Do you think it's a change? Do you see change in that? He can he's selling you more than what you can sell. And that's what most of the Black community can do. We can sell things like alcohol, cigarettes, a lifestyle, jewelry.
Lifestyle, true.
Here, make money off of that, dude. What are you doing? Don't sit in the back office because you sit in that back office. That's if you have the ability to do it, because some of us can't do it. Some of us are straight up nerds. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Nerds, you know, give me that paper and that pencil and put on my glasses and let me nerd out. Right?
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. Real quick to interject. That's what I was gonna say. A lot of times, especially me being in media, they said that, you know, typically people in front of the camera, you know, hypothetically speaking, typically people in front of the camera don't make as much money or have as much influence as people behind the scenes. So if you break that down, you really breaking it down, but like make it plain for some people because they're like, well, they told us to be behind the camera because that's what the producers, the directors, the people who greenlight a lot of things are behind the camera, not in front of the camera, not being the entertainment type of thing, you know? The
reason why the person, let's say, for example, let's use Jay-Z because he's a great person.
Yeah.
He's in front of the camera, right?
Right.
He's bringing the pill, but he's also multifaceted. He's also a nerd. He's an artistical nerd.
Yes, he is.
So he can do better in back as well as front. He has that ability, all right? The people who's in the front will learn how to be in back if they have the ability to embrace theory and thought and practices of business. Like, for example, you have someone like Shaquille O'Neal or Magic Johnson who knew nothing about examples. You know, who knew nothing about the back. But what they did is they had to learn about the back because people helped them with the back. And then they learn how to become a promoter of whatever it is they're doing. But even though they're doing something, they're not doing anything original. They're owning other people's businesses, like a franchise, like what we're doing. Like, I'm buying a franchise. I'm not opening up a restaurant. I'm using Taco Bell brand. I'm using Starbucks brand. And that's how you do it. You know, because if you get behind the scene, you're not an artist. Or you're doing pushing product. When you're in front of it, then you become the artist. And then we make money on that. The key is that most of us don't have that ability to do so. Some of us are just straight up front people. And they will never be back people. And that's understandable. Those are the people you see are broke 5, 10 years into the league or after the league, 5 or 10 years after being a comedian. They can't, you know, they wind up looking for jobs all over the world or maybe in Las Vegas doing a little stint there. You know what I'm saying? Those people, they couldn't understand the back. And no one gave them, because even if they was given the opportunity to go into the back, they messed that up. You know what I'm saying? So they want being in the front of the camera, and that's where they stay. But the key is that most people like us who may be coming from the hood, trying to make a life for ourselves, we do better in front. Like I have a friend when I was in graduate school, I had a lot of guys who was like, "Oh, I'm going to go do the PhD program. I'm going to do the MD program and all this." I say, "Great." But when they do that, I mean, these are some real charismatic brothers and sisters. They had attitude, they had ability to gift the gab. You know, they're very charismatic people. I said, why would you want to put yourself in some pajamas and walk around the hospital all day? Why would you want to put yourself in pajamas and a hat and make a limited salary when you can actually go and businessize yourself? Take that same charisma you have
Mm-hmm.
and make it happen for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And it does.
Yeah.
And some of us can do it. And some of us, we want to do it. But we
Yeah.
sitting here like, yo, I'm sitting here chocolates 35 hours, 40 hours. I mean, my whole objective is to get up out of here and do that. Once you learn how to do that in this, then you be like, yo, I got to can that. Get this out of here. I know what happened to me one time. I remember when I started getting into the investment field, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on my calendar. I use my calendar for everything. My calendar is my God.
Are
My
you right? Yeah. That schedule is key.
Yeah, I put my calendar up, right? Not only do I open it up on many venues. So my wife, my kids, everybody should have access to my calendar. In case this thing go down, I must get my calendar from somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So my calendar is cool. I knew I had a problem when I started putting my job in my calendar. I had a 9 to 5 and I was calendaring that in.
Mm.
Who does that? Who will put their job on their calendar? Like you go to 9 to 5. I had to put that in, and I said, you know what? At some point, I had to get rid of my job because I had so many other things working that was competing with my ability to work.
Okay.
And I was like, yo, I got to get rid of this job.
Okay.
I got to get rid of the job, man, and then you start to see the time to start to conflict. So you know what? I got to do a part-time job. You know, we're taught to never give up income. You know what I'm saying? If you got an income stream, you exhaust that. You never give up your income stream. That's just a middle class value. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So income is coming in, great. You keep it, but you can't do it full time because it's the amount of money that I'm making here, I can make triple over here if I wasn't here. But you don't give it up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the next generation to do that. The next generation who we trying to build, they could do that. But we grunt. We gonna work it. You know what I'm saying? So I was pissed. I was calendaring and I'm like, yo, I gotta quit. And then from there, I went to part-time until I was able to enough to free myself up and allow the business mindset to run itself.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you got to run it initially.
Right.
You know? And then eventually you say, you know what? I have people in place. And that's another thing. Most people have to learn how to manage capital and manage people.
Yeah.
If you don't understand how to manage capital and people, and that's not something that someone will tell you would know how to do. So, for example, you have a property over here, right? Have a maintenance person who can call for repairs and everything else. In the beginning, you didn't know. I didn't know that. I had to learn how to hire someone to do what I would normally. Oh, I'm not going to let you touch that because you know what? You're going to break it. You're going to mess it up. You're going to try to. No. At some point, learn how to do that. Let me show you how to do it, and then you can do it. Then once you learn how to do that and teach people how to do it, because people have the ability to do it, so long as you pay them.
Right.
If you pay a person consistently, they will do that job for you, and then they will build respect for you as they do it. And then eventually you'll get further and further away from it, and you can do something else. And that's a mindset that most of us don't have when you go into a business mindset. You have to learn how to manage people, like communicating with people, love people.
Right. I think
you have to learn how to manage money that comes from that. Because most people don't know how to manage capital. Capital is not necessarily paying your bills. It's all about how to pay your bills. How you pay your bills is a system of income coming in and income going out. You don't pay a bill whenever the money comes. You pay a bill consistently, just like you pay people consistently. And that's a mindset that comes about. Now, you can go to school and learn universal accounting. Universal accounting will teach you that. It teach you how to manage books and all this other stuff. But you can also learn that through trial and error. You would know how to pay taxes. You know how to pay taxes based on, you know how to get around taxes. And you know how to use people to help you do your taxes, you know? So all of that stuff comes in time. So to tell us that we can be that kind of a person is not. It's a unique individual. Some of us can only go for so far.
Right.
Some of us can go light years away and do our own thing. Like the guy who paid all that tuition at Morehouse.
Yeah, Robert Smith. Yeah, Morehouse. Yeah, Robert Smith. Yeah.
Some of us can be another Robert Smith.
Yeah.
Some of us can just be a little bit in the middle, but you're happy. So long as you wake up every day and say, I love my wife and kids. I love the life I'm living. I don't feel that I have to become something different just to go to this job and do something. Because sometimes you can outgrow a job. You can outgrow a profession. You know what I'm saying? Most of us don't know that. But we do. And that's when we have to become resentful. Like my wife has been teaching forever. She's been a teacher forever. She's been teaching for, I don't even know, maybe 20, 30 years. I don't know how long she's been teaching, but she's been teaching for a long time. And when she come home, I look at her, I'm like, yo, how you feel? I see what she's going through. She's going through the phase of, I don't want to do this no more. I want to do something else. She's in the process of doing something else. But the fact that she had ran her course. And so, but most of us don't have the option of saying, I don't want to do this no more.
Right.
You know, most of us say, I have to, you know, hold a wire and run it until I'm dead at 65 and collect my pension and call it a day. But she had the ability to do it, and now she's doing it. But most of us don't do that. You know, it's scary to say, but it is what it is, buddy.
It is. It is. Woo, this is, man, a healthy conversation, brother. I'm so thankful, man, that we able to have this talk on this platform, and people are able to kind of pull some of that information from the knowledge and the experience you have, brother. Before we leave out of here, because we said a lot, and it's a lot for a lot of people to unpack, more than enough. What would you say some call to action steps for like a young Black male, and even our females too, but really our young Black males, as far as like if they're a teenager or they're entering college age, you know, where, I guess, can they start, or what's a call to action that they can start?
First of all, it comes with a mindset. Don't take yourself too seriously. You know, a lot of us take what we do and what we about way too seriously because we're in love with ourselves. The American concept is taking care of self. I'm taking care of me. That's an American concept. You don't know that exists when you talk to people from other countries, because it's not about we. It's all about us.
Right.
I have a Japanese friend who talks about, whenever I see her, that's the first conversation we have. How do you feel about we? She struggled when she came to America with the concept of individuality.
You
know? In their culture, there's no such thing as my opinion. There's no such thing as me in my approach. It's all about how we benefit, how we can do better. So my advice to young people is, don't ever take yourself seriously and always put the other person first, number one. That's a hard concept. I struggle with my kids with that. I struggle with my kids with that. Learn how to put other people before you put yourself. Because I understand I have a 15-year-old son. I think he'll get it a little quicker because boys tend to have reality hit quicker than females. Men, we get that reality because we get rejected quickly, so it becomes us. So the key is, don't take yourself seriously, and also put other people's needs and wants first. Once you learn how to put other people's needs and wants first, then you learn how to be a leader. Because if you put their needs and wants first, then you know how to service people's needs. And at that point, you become a manager of individuals and people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And let me inject this, because in reference of our history, we know African Americans in this country, it seems like other people have put their needs always ahead of ours, right? I guess, how do we navigate that part? Because I totally agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. But like,
the key is that the system that we're in does not speak of that. We live in a me society. Like, for example, will you pay your neighbor's cell phone bill? Will you? Why don't you knock on your neighbors and say, "What's your cell phone? I want to pay it." Do that make sense?
No, it doesn't.
How about paying your neighbor's rent randomly? Just pay it, even though you broke. Pay his rent too.
No.
Right? How about when you go out and buy something? Let's say you go grocery shopping. You spend $400 on groceries. Spend another broke $400 that you don't have on your neighbors. Do that make sense?
No, it does not.
That's what the American concept is. It's all about me and making me feel good. I'm going to buy me a pair of shoes. I'm going to buy me a vacation. I'm going to buy me a house. It's all about me. And that's where it starts. And you don't learn that until you go other places in the world. That I will never be happy unless other people are around me are happy. And you see it. Exactly. Because let's say, for example, you become a Robert Smith, right out of wherever he came from, right? Robert Smith was worth billions of dollars, but his brothers and sisters are on food stamps and welfare. It's just like that in the Black community. That's just how it works. You are successful, but not everybody around you are successful.
Right.
Your brothers and sisters on food stamps, welfare, working Section 8, housing, or they may be on some low-paying job or something like that, manual labor. But you decide to get up, get out of school, make a lot of money, become a successful person. In essence, you have a problem. As we say, the dual conscious, as the boys talks about. You have dual conscious going on in your family. And that's what we struggle with. So the first thing I would tell individuals, listen, don't take yourself serious, number one, because you are a result of something else. You didn't create this. You're a result of something else. So don't take it serious. Yeah. And anything that's going wrong with you, you can correct it and be brave enough to correct it and reject the very thing that you was taught and love and like. That's a hard thing for us to deal with. How could you reject the very thing you was taught to love and like and make you? This is who I am. But learn how to reject it. Because if you're not willing to reject that, then you're not going to make a change in who you are as a person. So I reject everything that was not healthy that I was taught to love in this world. You remember how the movie Menace to Society?
Yep.
The guy was telling the young boy that?
Yeah, Kane, his grandfather. Yeah, his grandfather was trying to tell him. Yeah,
he said you have to unlearn the very thing you was taught to become something else. And that's in the most thing you take, like look at Soul Food.
Charles Dutton. Yeah, matter of fact, that was Charles Dutton's character. Yeah, when he's talking to them.
He said, if you look at soul food, we have to literally unlearn the soul food that we was eating since slavery.
Yes.
But look, technically right now we are still dying. We're going to have 3 generations of death before we learn that soul food was killing us. But you have to also look across the board. Hispanics are dealing with their soul food.
Exactly.
Asians are dealing with, it's killing them at the same rate as it's killing us.
Yeah, the sodium in soy sauce, and like I just found out, no stereotypical thing, but like the sodium in soy sauce and some of those, it's crazy. It's high. It's like
but it's not even that. It's like when we talk about in science, I talk about the thing of natural occurrence. All whole foods have naturally occurring nutritional value attached to them, which means that there's sodium, there's fats, there's carbs, there's all these things.
Right, true.
In uncooked, unprocessed foods. Like I was telling you about the dandelion that I'm drinking right now, is that they're there. So the nutritional facts comes when God made it, whoever you believe. Whenever they grew that apple, the nutritional facts is already there. They have sodium, it has niacin, it has iron, it has potassium, it has protein, it have all of the stuff is already in here, So when you add stuff to it, it's going to depreciate the value of you. So that's why you're supposed to eat it raw. And certain things you just can't eat. So as going back to what we were saying about soul foods, that we have to, at least the progressive among us, those who are progressive in knowledge and understandable about who we are and trying to change some of our paradigm, will reject the very black eyed peas, what do we eat? Sweet potato pies, all that other stuff, the fat back in our greens. We have to learn how to unlike that stuff so that we can embrace another 80 or 90 years of life. If we can do if we can live up to maybe another 80, 90 years. Because most of us, we die between 50 and 60.
Yeah.
And if it's not of our own doing, like drugs and alcohol or cancer, it can be also because of violence or something like that.
Yeah.
But technically, most of us die within our 50s and 60s. And when we act surprised, oh, wow, why did he die? He died because there was other issues, what we call epigenetics, that affected that individual. His epigenetics, he did not recognize it, but it's an issue. And that's why we reject certain things. So once we recognize our environment and then we can reject it, then we can start moving forward. But most of us never going to reject. It's like someone saying, you're never going to eat fried chicken in your life. You see how hard it is for an ignorant person to say that? An ignorant person say that. Never giving up fried chicken. Never. You got to eat pizza. All right.
It's like they're religion.
Let's say something stupid like, oh, you one of those vegetarian. And that's the cholesterol levels like 250 and they don't even know. You know what I'm saying?
That's and then religion, brother.
Yeah. So the idea is that once you recognize it, the next step is to do something about it. I recognize it. Now I put whoever I thought I was and whoever I want to be, which is a credit to society and to myself and my family, then I'm going to be that person. And you may be walking that street by yourself like Booker T. Washington. A lot of them was walking alone, and you realize that in order for you to be successful, you got to be the only one in the room in most instances. And if you have a friend, you must realize that friend must be intelligent than you. If your friend is not more intelligent than you, then he need not be your friend, as the saying goes. Eventually, we will have to. Who talks about that? Dr. Clark, Henry.
Yeah, Dr. Claude Anderson. Yeah.
No, Dr.
Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, but Dr. John Henry Clark talks about that too.
Yeah, he said if you're not the most intelligent person in the room, then you are not doing anything for yourself. Right. You may be doing something for them, but you ain't doing nothing for yourself, especially if you're a person in need, So ideally, that once you start to, get comfortable with being by yourself. And he also talks about, if you're looking for a friend, look in the mirror. That's my favorite.
Look in the mirror, yeah.
If you're looking for a friend, look in the mirror, because that's the only one that's going to take care of you, So his attitude is, so once you have rejected that idea, you move into the next paradigm. The next step would be you start to reinvent yourself. Once you reinvent yourself and you bring good people around you, because a powerful spirit would only bring good, powerful people around you. Weak people or people who have nothing to offer will never embark upon you, because your spirit would speak otherwise. And you would be able to, and the confidence will literally undress them by asking them a simple question: what bring you to this point? And if they don't have anything of value to say when you say what brings you to this point, I'm just, you're like, hey, you have to have something of value. And that's when you can start growing. And then once the confidence comes in, and age comes in, and experience comes in, and you realize that it's not about race, it's not about sex, it's not about culture, it's not about religion, then you open to everybody in the world. Everybody become associates with you, because you don't have to. You're not limited to a particular type. Like I have a friend right now. He's Indian dude, married to an Indian lady through one of those what they call arranged marriages. I said, how you feel about these? He said, oh, they did pretty well as far as arrangement. I said, but do you still any resentment for it? He said, I do, only when I look at my wife in her level of achievements. I said, wow, that's disrespectful.
Yeah, I think.
No, he said. I said, why? He said, because her lack of achievements eventually weaken me at times. That's tough. That is tough. It's tough. Because if you don't have a growth mentality, then it's going to be a problem. Mama needs to have a growth mentality. So you see, this lady still functions like she's 26 years old, and you're both clearly in your 70s or 80s. She's still cooking like she's still like that old, old school food, I call it. And you need a different diet because you're older now.
No, you can't adjust.
You know what I'm saying? So
you should try to eat hamburger. Well, not to say her, but like just to say hypothetically, you start to eat hamburger or fries, and we like 50 plus. It's like that ain't gonna work.
Nah, you can't do that. You can't.
Yeah.
Sometimes more is less. Maybe you're gonna have a handful of nuts and some water.
Right. Yeah.
That's your day. That's what I'm doing for the day. A handful of nuts and some water. I get to see my blood pressure stay normal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's normal. So that's some level of resentment. But looking back at it, sometimes you're gonna have to reinvent yourself, maybe 3 or 4 times, and maybe spend a whole lifetime reinventing yourself, relearning the very thing you know as being the case, not being the case, and learn how to say no to something that you like. Now, we all like something, we love ourselves, but you have to learn how to have the power to say no. And then you will become a better person, because it opens up your eyes to the real world. And I know a lot of us die every day, but it seems as if when someone dies, we get all crazy. Oh, so-and-so. Yeah, you're going to be that person too. We all want to be that surprise on the phone. So-and-so. Yeah. It's a part of the evolutionary process. And to some degree, we must accept the fact that we're going to do it. And if you don't accept the fact, then it's going to be something more than what it should be. So what we do is, while you living, you set up a legacy. You set up legacy while you're living. So in essence, you live a life of legacy. And that's how we grow as a person. I know people talk to you other than I hate to tell you that, but anyway.
No, brother. This has been a great conversation. We can definitely go even deeper, family. For those who are watching, those who are listening, and for those who will end up watching this later on, definitely put your comments down below. Again, my name is Kyle Dixon, and this is Professor David Kelly, entrepreneur, educator, philanthropist, scholar, philosophizer. But no, seriously, family, we enjoyed having this conversation in reference of you being privy to it. There will be more conversations like this being had. Again, if you want to reach out to any one of us, just put your comments down below, and then we'll continue the conversation. But these are definitely conversations that we need to have more of, and to really dissect where we're at as far as a Black community, as far as Black people in America and globally, because these are just things that we haven't been able to discuss ad nauseum, and they really need to be discussed and acted upon, not just talked about, but really tangible solutions, practices, and methods to use to get us to a better situation than our previous generation. And like Mr. Kelly said, to create that legacy, right? To create that generational wealth and legacy to leave behind for those who come after us and be able to use to progress. All right. So I thank you all for today and listening. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Hey, man, I appreciate you.
Okay. Have a good one. Enjoy.
All right, Mark, y'all. All right. Peace and blessings, y'all. For another one. Have a great day.